Dr. Tom Roselle live right now, 630 WMAL.
Welcome to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. I'm live in studio, 888-630-9625. That's 888-630-WMAL. Love to take your phone calls on any subject that you have in mind. We've got a really interesting one today, and I have got a great guest with me, someone that you know. However, if you have a problem and you've tried and applied and come up with the same old, nothing that works, well, this is your opportunity. Give me a call, 888-630-9625. Almost didn't make it. I ran and I drove like crazy, and fortunately the police, officers, were looking the other way, but I got here a little faster than speed limit would permit because I just got off an airplane from Florida. It was beautiful down there. Very interesting conference, the Council on Nutrition from the American Chiropractic Association annual symposium, and it was titled Innovative Therapies in Nutritional Practice, but what it had to do with is all kinds of great things to do with thyroid and iodine and metabolic syndrome and so forth. And to help me discuss that, and we're going to talk about it in length because it's something that she knows a whole lot about, is Sue Roselle. We got here.
We did.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry that I made you circle and circle and circle at Dulles, and I think you had a few laps in there, but it's it's good.
I'm not sure how to get back from the cell phone place, so I just kept circling.
Well, that's okay. Circling is good. Particularly, that's what we were doing in the airplane too. It was circling. We were here early, and I was oh, good, no problem. We'll get to the radio station. Not an issue. This is going to be easy. But we continued to circle and circle and circle. Anyway, we got on the ground and got here, and I'm saying, okay, how are we going to handle this program? And we're going to. Anyway, 888-630-WMAL. Sue, the conference I went to was really pretty interesting. You should have come with me. Yeah, I know.
Had a lot of things to do.
You did. You've been a busy girl all week. I understand. But it was really some people that you know. Guy presented by the name of Dr. Michael Wald and David Quigg and Beakley and Brownstein. I know you know David Brownstein. And
yeah, I do.
Yeah,
he's a good guy.
He is a really good guy. He's he's one of the
super smarts.
Yeah, all these guys were. I sit back there and I wonder, what am I doing in this room?
Learning.
Learning. I'm supposed to be one of the experts in nutrition, with my diplomate in nutrition, but these guys take the top edge off. But it's good to go listen to these folks because.
Well, just remember the experts are always the ones that are still learning.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think that was a comment.
Yes, it was.
Okay, good. So anyway, Sue, let's talk about several different things. And since this is all fresh in my brain and we can help people along the way a little bit here, let's talk about a very interesting item that I've used in practice, you've used in practice, and one that seems to be taken on a little different perspective, and it's iodine. Mm-hmm. And, we traditionally know that iodine works in thyroid, and it needs to be bounded with tyrosine and trace minerals, and ultimately that produces something called T4, which is thyroxine. But you know what? There's a whole lot more, apparently, that this little bugger iodine has to play in health, which we've known, but the information now that's coming out substantiates that. And the one presentation that was really interesting for me to listen to was a guy by the name of Brownstein, your favorite, and he, David Brownstein is a medical physician, and he loves chiropractors and functional medicine people, and so subsequently, he is, cutting edge guy, but there's this medical, and he called it idiophobia or iodophobia. Iodophobia. And it means that, people don't want to give iodine because they think it's toxic to the system. Well, the data is all out there, and it ain't so.
That's right.
It's not toxic at all, and it's one that is one that has tremendous amount of deficiency across the board in this country.
Did he talk to you about one of the reasons why that deficiency occurs?
Yeah.
Long ago, when they were doing manufacturing and baking of bread, they used to put iodine in the flour to prevent bacteria and bugs.
And that's why people were healthier.
And that's why people were healthier, because people would get their usual necessary dose of iodine across the board when they used this, quote, enriched flour. And it truly was enriched with iodine. Then somewhere along the way, I think it was about the 1950s or early 60s, someone got this brilliant idea to use bromine instead of iodine. For whatever the reason, I don't understand, and no one seems to know the reason why either, to put into the flour so that it didn't have bugs and bacteria growth. The problem is that bromine is very much like iodine in that the same cells will take bromine up to the exclusion of iodine.
It competes for all the receptor sites, and it competes for it first.
And it competes for it in making the thyroid hormone. All of a sudden, you've got a lot of people who can not only get the iodine they need from their diet, but if they do get the iodine, there's no place for it to go because it's already been blocked.
Well, the other piece that is competing for iodine receptor sites, which we've known about for years, is fluoride.
Oh, yeah.
And that's in your water.
That's right.
So between all, and we're a junk food carbohydrate society. We're eating breads and things that are made out of wheat, and that's all bromine. Mm-hmm. And every time you turn around, I mean, that's what it is. There's no, so you get all this stuff in, and even though that you may be getting, small amounts of iodine from other places, but in this end of the world, we have a pandemic area, and it's epidemic throughout the country relative to iodine deficiencies. But bromine and fluoride are the biggest problems, and we're seeing, the interesting thing that they brought up, which I wasn't aware of, I knew it was significant because we see more of it in the practice, but some of these guys are reporting in their practices 35 to over 40% of their patients are coming in with Hashimoto's disease.
That's right.
And, I mean, that's an autoimmune inflammatory process affecting the thyroid, and they're relating it to iodine deficiency, which I sat there and said, really?
Yep.
It's, the statistics don't lie, and the data is there from, there was one that came out, National Health and Nutritional Survey, and they did an evaluation statistically from 1971 to 2000 and showed iodine levels during that period of time had declined 50% in the United States.
Sure. And it's not coming from any other source, and we have cut back on our use of salt because of the high amount of hypertension that's associated with it. And that means people aren't using the iodized table salt, but the salt that's in their fast food and their junk food is not iodized because it's more expensive.
And here's the other piece that goes with it. As a result, what they're also finding during that period of time is that thyroid diseases, which we said Hashimoto's problems and so forth, but autoimmune problems and cancers, breast cancer, prostate cancer, endometrial cancers, and all types of cancers have dramatically increased. And we've talked about the estrogenic effects in the atmosphere, but also because iodine is one of the immunological supportive elements protecting the body from developing cancer.
That's right.
And, we've talked
particularly the breast cancer. Breast
and prostate, same tissue.
Yeah. There's a lot of light research, I put it that way, because they haven't got, definitive, yes, this is a big problem. But there's a lot of research that is suggesting that a lot of the trouble that girls have when they go into puberty is the iodine levels that they had prior to developing at puberty were marginal, and when they start developing breast tissue, the iodine goes to the breast tissue and not the thyroid, and so they become hypothyroid. And there's also a very light link to the potential for breast and prostate cancer when iodine levels are very low and a person is hypothyroid.
The other interesting piece in dealing with pregnancy and iodine is there's something in the neighborhood between 17 to 20% of all U.S. women of childbearing age have less amounts of urinary secretion of iodine than would be considered normal. See, here's how that works, is that when you're urinating out the iodine, it means that your thresholds in the body are okay.
That's right.
And if you're not going to see much of it. And then women who are pregnant, and over 12 to 15% of those are showing the same situation. Now, what they're seeing as a result of that is a dramatically and this is the one that got to me, and I hadn't thought about it before, is a significant increase in attention deficit disorders, ADD.
Sure.
And also in depression and so forth. It boggles the mind when you look at all these trends, particularly when you know that 20% of young school-age boys are on mind-altering drugs. They're on psychogenics. And when you begin to look at environment, because it really is all about environment, here's a link that is significant. And then there was other pieces that I was, just kind of blown away with. Iodine and preeclampsia. They went on about that, and they were saying that tremendous studies have been done, and they're showing that, urinary iodine concentration is now being used as a marker, a laboratory marker for determining whether a woman will go into preeclamptic problems when she's pregnant.
That's right.
And they're using high dosages of iodine when they find that in these pregnant ladies with no side effects whatsoever.
With no side effects, because
Nothing.
It's turning that problem around. And in addition to that, there's an increase. There's 1 in 2,000 women that develop hypothyroid following the birth of their child. Postpartum thyroiditis, it's called. And it can start anywhere from 4 to 12 months after the delivery. And again, this is all the shifting of all the other hormones in the body that's going to have an impact on the thyroid production, coupled with the low levels of iodine in our diet and our resources. And it's not surprising that we're having more of this thyroiditis showing up in young women who have just had babies.
888-630-9625. That's 888-630-WMAL. Sue, let's go to the phones. We've got several calls that are stacking now. JD, thank you for holding. How can we help? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, JD, how can we help you?
Yes, Dr. Roselle. I was on the line last week when you closed out and didn't ask my question regarding hypothyroidism.
I'm sorry. Well, the right program, right day. How can we help?
Okay, two questions. One, is Armour Thyroid a better substitute than Synthroid?
Absolutely yes, but with something else that I'll add to that in a second. What's your second question?
Second question, if you negate Armour and Synthroid, would a combination of Idorol, Thyroxine, and Zemplemin as an anti-inflammatory suffice in place of either one of those?
Okay, so it depends on the situation. There's many things that can be used to upregulate thyroid function, and in my mind, and the approach that I've taken over the years, if you have a system that has not totally collapsed, meaning the thyroid is still able to be stimulated to produce its own T4, thyroxine, then you have to begin to look at the why. And this is part of what we're talking about today. Here's the thing with Armour or any type of hormone, you have to have adequate amounts of iodine in the system. Otherwise, the Armour is not going to work as well as it's meant to. And like anything else, you end up increasing the amounts. But you have to take a look at what's causing the inflammatory response, whether it's iodine, whether the liver's not working the way they're supposed to, because the liver is what converts T4 thyroxine into T3, which is your active hormone. And if the liver's toxic or it has some pathological detoxification problems where it's not producing enough glutathione or not handling glutathione, because glutathione generally is produced in the intestinal tract, those are the things that you have to look at. And until you do that, it's like a catch-22. Which one is better? Well,
there's also some other nutrients involved besides that. You've got selenium, which is a key player in that thyroid conversion from the inactive T4 to the active T3. If you are low in selenium, and most of us are, again, because it's a trace mineral that's devoid in most of the soil where our food is grown, zinc and copper, very important. But certain vitamins as well. Vitamin A, the true vitamin A, retinol. Again, small dose, 2,500 I use. B2, B3, B6, and vitamin C are all key players, not only in production of the adequate hormones, but to also make our cells receptive to those hormones so that they get in and do the metabolic changes that are supposed to be made.
So JD, the idea is to find out why, support the system. If you use too much Armour, if you use Synthroid, pretty soon you're going to start shutting down the capacity of that organ system to work. You know the old saying, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it.
Yes.
It's the same thing. If an organ system is being supplanted by artificial hormone or a natural hormone like Armour, it's still not working to produce its own. So you need to go further up the line to find out where the inflammatory process is coming from and why the receptor sites are not available. We talked about bromine a few minutes ago, and we said it's in baking goods and so forth, but it is also in a lot of other areas. You get in a new car, that new car smell?
Yes.
That has the halogens, which bromine is one of them. And fluorine and bromine and chloride are the biggest culprits, and you get those out of the car, out of the new smell that you get into the automobile. Sprays that they put on fruits and vegetables, those are loaded with bromine. And so it's like all around us. So that's one of the reasons that we're showing such ridiculously high inflammatory levels causing all kinds of problems, not just thyroid problems.
Dr. Tom Roselle Live continues now on 630 WMAL.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. You're listening to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. I'm here at 888-630-9625. That's 888-630-WMAL. Love to talk to you on any subject you have in mind. We're talking about iodine and thyroid and inflammatory problems and all kinds of good things. And my guest is someone who is familiar to me, better be after a whole lot of years. My wife, Sue. Hi, Sue.
Hello.
Hey, by the way, congratulations. You and Connie last night went to listen to Sarah Palin at Marriott Hotel in Rockville, and it was about it was a fundraiser for
Heroic Media. Which is a type of advertising and providing services for people to give them options for abortion.
Good for you.
It was a very good program.
Excellent. Good for you. I'm proud.
Pulled at my heartstrings.
I wish I had gone with you, but I was in Florida. I wasn't here.
It was a good program.
We really have to thank WMAL as well, because they provided us the opportunity to go.
Absolutely.
So it was great. It was fortunate.
And they should be congratulated because they are part of they were the largest contributor to this whole movement.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
They were.
Good for them. Good for them. I want to remind our listeners that May has a couple special things, and today's the first day of May, and with that comes Mother's Day. All of you lovely mothers who provide us so much, both in children and aggravation. I mean, good children and,
Cut it out.
However, the deal is this. May is Mother's Day, and Thermography Centers of Fairfax, who is an ongoing sponsor of Dr. Tom Roselle Live, is going to make an offer because they want to help all the mothers out there. Full body exam, breast exam, thermographic imaging, and as you know, I support it significantly. I think it's something that all of you should do as part of your annual examination process. They're going to give you a 20% discount on any scan during the month of May. So give them a call, 703-943-7248. Call Dareth Painter at 703-943-7248, and they will give you 20% off any body scan, any thermographic imaging during the month of May in support of Mother's Day. Don't let this opportunity go by. It's something that you really need to take advantage of. Wouldn't it be nice to find out you have a problem long before it becomes a problem and you have something that you can actually do about it, no matter what the condition is, including cancers? David, thank you for holding. How can we help you, sir?
Hi, doctor.
You calling from California?
I am. It's just morning out here. It's about 9:30 or so.
Well, good morning, sir.
Hey, and morning, Sue.
Good morning.
When I heard that you were knowledgeable about thyroid, I wanted to ask you about the aftermath of Fukushima. And there's a certain amount of data that came out in the last couple of years, for example, about Chernobyl. The nuclear industry is trying to claim that there were only 19 people that died from Chernobyl and possibly 40 and whatnot. But there are a number of researchers that have come up with a number closer to 1 million people. I believe it's 985,000 people dead from Chernobyl. And they break it down into 3 or 4 categories. One is miscarriages. One is heart disease. Apparently the radioactive isotopes from selenium, goes straight to the heart muscles, and so heart disease is massively increased from it. Another category is about 80% is just a general weakness. They're saying that about 80% of the children are far weaker than their counterparts pre-Chernobyl. But then the last category is thyroid problems. And so I'm wondering, are you keeping up with this data dispute about the deaths from Chernobyl and then the potential from Fukushima?
To some extent. The one thing that I can tell you is that the media and the Soviet Union has lied to us about what takes place. I mean, obviously they don't want people to know how bad of a situation it was, but in fact that meltdown, and I think it was back in 1986, it's been that many years now.
25 years, yeah.
Caused significant problems, and there's claims that, from tens or hundreds of thousands of people have died, and those are the ones that they're willing to even talk about, and the number might be even much higher than that. And the problem comes in to how did they die? Is it, as a direct result of the meltdown, or did it come because of the radiation exposure later on? And there's a lot of confusion in that, and you're never really going to know the truth because there's a lot of different information that can be had and opinions that stem off from all of that. But the National Committee for Radiation Protection of the Ukrainian population, obviously the satellites that are involved in all this, are putting out the data. So anything that comes out of there is not reliable in my book, but we know that within 4 years of the disaster, there were a tremendous amount of people who were contaminated. And there's significant problems that are continuing to exist because it affected the entire planet, not just that area. We're going to coming up to a break in about 25 seconds or so here. I'd like you to stay online. We'll talk about it just a little bit more. You took the time to call me from California. I feel very flattered. And we'll discuss this a little bit more. I have some more data that I can share with you. You're listening to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. My guest in studio, Sue Roselle. We're talking about inflammatory processes. We're talking about iodine. We're going to be talking about how the thyroid begins to break down. Don't go away. We have a lot more information for you right here on WMAL.
Dr. Tom Roselle Live continues now on 630 WMAL.
Welcome to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. We're here in studio bringing you some very interesting information on iodine and autoimmune problems and inflammatory processes and so forth. At 888-630-9625. That's 888-630-WMAL. To help me do that is Sue Roselle, and I just got off of a very interesting week in Orlando, unfortunately not to play, although I would have liked to, but it was heavily stimulating brain-wise. We were at a nutrition conference. I was at a nutrition conference. Sue was not with me. She stayed home, and she kept the fort down. However, we are on the line right now with a gentleman from California. David, are you still there?
Oh, I am. Yeah, I sure appreciate it.
Not a problem. The official willingness of the Soviet Union or Russia now to tell you how many people died in that disaster in Chernobyl is, I think the official statement is about 100,000 people. Now, you can take that to date, and they say that is as of now. You can take that number, obviously, in my brain, and I would go 3 to 4 times that. But again, you can read a lot of different newsletters, a lot of different information that's out there, and that number will fluctuate from a few thousand people up to what you suggested, maybe 1 million people. Now, there's direct and indirect causes of deaths that are due to that, genetic changes that occur over a period of time, and then the person dies because of those changes. Food sources being contaminated, water systems becoming contaminated, animals becoming contaminated, then we eat those things, and we know that when genetic matrices are altered in any way, they affect our bodies and they alter our bodies. So you have both forms who died very quickly. The estimates of hundreds of thousands of people that were involved in what they call the cleanup effort to change the radiation in that area or the radiation exposures. Now, where that lies, David, I don't know. And I've read a lot of things. I don't know whose data to believe. We could rumor it all day long, but I really don't know but we do know that there's short and long-term effects. And then when you relate that to the Fukushima accident, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to die. We're already receiving radiation in this country, there in California and in Washington State and so forth.
Oh, they've gotten it in Iceland.
That's
already,
right.
And that was a month ago. I tell you, just a couple of things. I misquoted one of the chemicals a little bit ago. I should have said cesium. Cesium is the one that goes straight to the heart muscles.
Correct.
And so I think what they've done, since it's been 25 years since Chernobyl, they just statistically looked at how many miscarriages or how much heart disease was added to the burden, and then they've extrapolated it over the certain amount of years. And
well, the congenital malformations that took place, as a result of chromosome damage that they're starting to see now is significant. I mean, Turkey did a whole, and I was looking at this the other day, and you just brought it up, so it's triggering a memory pattern. They did a whole study on the fetal development and what they called the neural tube and the deformities that they were seeing there. And what that is, that's the central nervous system development in a child, and they're relating it directly to what had taken place in Chernobyl.
Right. I know. If you see those, there's a series of maps that show the wind patterns and then the radiation patterns, and it's incredible. It went straight toward Poland, then it's straight up toward the Scandinavian countries, then it all of a sudden turned to the far right and crossed over the Siberia and whatnot, but then it dropped down into both Italy and Turkey and the Mediterranean. They couldn't eat vegetables in Italy for an entire year.
That's right, and still some of that stuff has not been cleared. There's a lot of fish that you really don't want to get into if you're over in that end of the world. And the problem is the potassium iodide. We're talking about iodine right now, and it gets into or the radioactive iodine, it gets into the system. It competes for the different receptor sites, not only to the thyroid gland, but also to the other organ systems. And their different organ systems have different needs, from everything from the adrenal glands to the thymus, which is part of immune function, pituitary, which is going to control a lot of hormone function. And they have minimum requirements. So the stuff gets in, it locks it up, and meaning the radioactive iodine gets in and competes with these receptor sites. So now you begin to see breakdown in these systems. So that goes to what we were going to talk about with potassium iodide, and which is the one thing that we can use to protect ourselves. There's a product called Ioderol that has a couple forms of potassium in it, iodine in it, and potassium iodide is one of it. The suggested minimum dosage is 15 to 17 milligrams a day. And after coming back from this conference that I was at this weekend, my brain is starting to say a whole lot more than that is necessary to get into saturation to the rest of the body.
Well, and this is really new information, because originally they were always cautionary about overdoing with the iodine and so forth. And of course, it wasn't really a big issue prior to all of these nuclear accidents. But at this point, one of the best protective measurements you can take is to make sure that you have at least the minimum amount, which I think is 12.5 milligrams combined of potassium iodide and iodine itself. And I think most people would be tolerant of that level. And certainly if you're in an area that's going to be exposed by this most recent situation, which is obviously our western states, Canada, Iceland, Alaska, and so forth, and eventually it's going to dribble over into this far east of those areas, those people would be well to make sure their iodine status is good, because that way it'll at least block the radioactive iodine that's coming. The other thing that you have to worry about is the fact that if they have low thyroid to begin with, they need the iodine to make the thyroid work, and just having a low thyroid is going to promote high blood pressure, arteriosclerosis, elevated cholesterols. So just that alone is going to make you more at risk for heart disease, and then exposure to radioactive cesium and so forth further exacerbates that problem.
Sure, yeah, and that was kind of the whole point. By the way, I don't know if you kept up with the Fukushima news this morning, but one of their chief scientists, University of Tokyo professor Kasako, resigned yesterday because, if I remember right, the the recommended dosage per becquerels per year is 1 becquerel per year. What we're living in post-Chernobyl is closer to 2.5 to 3 per year. And
that's 25 years later.
Yeah, and the industry, TEPCO is the big power company over in Japan, and they have essentially fast-tracked the schools over there to receiving 20 becquerels per year. And so this professor resigned in horror. You know, he couldn't believe that that Japan would allow 20 per year for the kindergarten kids.
It's a man with a conscience. David, we've got to go. I thank you for your call. I appreciate it. Give us a call again, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
888-630-9625. You know, he's right on task with so much of this, and this is part of why we're seeing so many problems. And unfortunately, as a result of Fukushima, we're going to see some more problems. Everybody, you know, in my book, everybody should be taking iodine. Well,
and there was a little snippet, and I can't recall the resource, but they were going through and looking at the damage of the hydrogen bombs on the people in Japan after the World War II, and found that there was significantly less damage to the people who lived on that island during that period of time than there was to the people in Chernobyl. And one of the reasons they were speculating, obviously it's not a study, but it was speculation, was the fact that these people have in their native diets high percentages of seaweed.
That's right.
And sea vegetables. And certain seafoods.
Well, the good old American diet is taken over in Japan.
Yeah,
they're not quite as protected either.
That's true. But using the high levels of seaweed and sea vegetables in their eating patterns of the traditional Japanese foods was extraordinarily protective for a lot of these people. And they did not suffer the extreme illnesses and problems that we would have anticipated that would have happened.
But what you have now also with disasters like this and other things that have occurred, not only Chernobyl but Fukushima, and there's been things in between that nobody's talked about,
right,
is that the animals and the fish are loaded up with radioactive iodine.
I know.
And now we're getting those things. So you don't have the protection anymore as you did in the past. It's not the same level. All of our food sources have been contaminated in one way or the other. And unfortunately, you know, we're going to end up in a real problem as a result of this. I don't think they're telling the truth on this Fukushima thing.
No, I know they're not.
It's starting to, you know, affect us. But potassium iodide is one of the types of iodine that you need to take, and iodine, as I've said for years, is so intimately important that you can't turn anything around. You can't take any thyroid supplementation unless you have adequate amounts of iodine in the body. It doesn't work. And going back to the original caller, you know, if you're supplementing with anything and you don't have enough levels of iodine, it doesn't work. It's just not going to. And when you put a patient on thyroid medication, you put a patient on, you know, anything to enhance thyroid function, and it doesn't work, there's an inflammatory process that's going on there, and it has to be dealt with. It has to be dealt with first. Let's go to the phones. Sandra from Damascus, thank you for calling and thank you for waiting.
Thank you for taking my call. I'm an avid listener of you, gleaning information each week. I have been on medication for GERD for a couple of years, and I've been concerned about taking that long term. Recently, I spoke with a nutritionist who steered me in the direction of taking Dgl and probiotics and doing some other physical things, slow walk after each meal, raising the head of my bed, those kinds of things. I did a little research on the Dgl, and nothing is without warnings. So I'm looking, and I'm trying to weigh the risks of each thing. And so, what is your wisdom on this?
Well, I would start by saying the warnings for using Dgl are significantly less than the warnings using antacid medications, even the over-the-counter ones. Dgl is a form of licorice that has the component that affects blood pressure and potassium balance removed. And it is a very, very powerful nutrient that helps to heal up the mucus lining of the stomach. Originally, they were using it for people who have ulcers. I don't know if you have an ulcer or not.
No.
But one of the things you can use it for when you've been on an acid suppressive medication is to start building up the stomach lining again. Again, like Doc said earlier, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. And if you're taking something that's blocking your natural production of hydrochloric acid, the body says, oh, I don't need to protect the stomach lining any longer because there's nothing to protect it.
So if you start putting things in, normally most people, interesting enough, Sandra, is that it's not that they have a hydrochloric acid excess, it's that there's a hydrochloric acid insufficiency within the system. And the reason that when they do the medical tests and they do the endoscopic examinations that you see burning in the esophagus is not because you're producing too little or too much initially. There's two pieces to this. But the sphincter, it's called the cardiac sphincter, that blocks the stomach from regurgitating isn't working. Well, that's neurological and that's neuromuscular. You have to fix that. That means that you're getting some dribble back into it, even if you have normal amounts of acid in your system. But as we get older, we don't produce adequate amounts of hydrochloric acid to begin with. We need more of it. So when you're on a protein pump blocker or any of the other antacids, you stop absorbing calcium and protein and B12 and other nutrients that you need. So as Sue was saying, Dgl is a excellent product. We use it in the office all the time. In addition to that, you can use comfrey. In addition to that, you can use chlorophyll. You can use aloe juice. And all those things begin to help heal it. And then heavy levels of a good probiotic.
And there's a big connection between the probiotic level and acid reflux. The thing with using all of these natural preparations, though, if you've been on a Protonics or something like that, you do not go off of that Protonics abruptly. You have to wean down.
The last thing that you need to know about this is that it is reversible, but you have to heal that system up, and you can get normal function back.
Dr. Tom Roselle Live continues now on 630 WMAL.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. You've been listening to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. We've been in studio, 888-630-WMAL. My guest has been Sue Roselle, and we've been talking about iodine and thyroid and autoimmune problems, and we got into Chernobyl and all kinds of things like that. It was an interesting program today. If I said to you, exceeded all expectations, great presentation, life-changing info. Thank you for dedication to helping people become healthy and living more fully. Great, thank you, excellent, glad I came. Those were comments that were said about last year's Ageless Health Seminar. This year, Ageless Health 2011 is a one-day event, and I promise you that it will transform your life and your health forever. If you're serious, truly serious about changing your health, this is an opportunity. We do as a keynote event one time a year. It's in September the 17th on a Saturday. We start early and we go all day long, and there's going to be breakout sessions for you to look at core training exercise. We're going to do a breakout session for Tai Chi and Tai Chi Guan so you can understand how to fully relax your body in an old traditional Chinese way. But every one of my doctors are going to present. Sue will be there and every one of my staff, and we just do a grand rounds with you, and the information is absolutely amazing. Here's the deal. If you'd like to save some money, you need to register now. If you'd like to save 15% off the regular price, go online to rosellecare.com and register before June 20th. And if you'd like to upgrade your seating and you'd like to have lunch with me and be able to ask me questions during the session, we have a special event for you for that as well. So check it out, rosellecare.com, or call us at 703-698-7117. Love to have you there. It's a sold-out event every year. It's not going to be any different this year. So do it now. Don't wait. Sue, some closing thoughts, as they say.
Some tools to use.
Some tools to use.
Okay. When people have somewhat what we call the borderline low thyroid, or what is often referred to as subclinical low thyroid or hypothyroidism, they always want to know, do I have to go on medications? Do I have to take prescriptions? And in some cases that may be the case, but there are many, many things we can do on our own, just consistently, and it's interesting how this crosses over several different issues, heart and allergy and immune and so forth. There's some basic things we need to do first before you want to think about medications, and one is getting exercise, aerobic and weight training. It increases your receptivity. Using organic foods as often as possible with high levels of vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, whole grains, if you're tolerant of it. Using filtered water that doesn't have chlorine and fluoride in it, because those are also going to impact it. Getting enough sleep, 8 hours. Try to get 8 hours of sleep if you can. It makes a huge difference in your metabolism as well as your thyroid. Try to do a little stress management. Try not to get all worked up about everything. And do a good high-potency multivitamin. Those are just basic ones to start with, but that may make a difference in the thyroid.
Iodine, selenium, vitamin C. Take it away. We're here every Sunday trying to bring you information that you wouldn't get anyplace else. And even if I have to run from the airport to get here in a matter of moments, I made it for you. I'll hear next Sunday at 12 noon. Stay tuned. Tell your friends about us. We'll see you then. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. Bye.
Dr. Tom Roselle live right now, 6:30 WMAL.
Health is a do-it-yourself program. That's reality and the title of my new book. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. Health is a do-it-yourself program is a most understandable introduction to natural health care. My book will take you step by step through why the body breaks down and gets sick, but also how it repairs itself. You will finally understand the often confusing world of natural care. Order it today by going to Amazon.com or from our website, RoselleCare.com. That's RoselleCare.com.
Did you know that routine mammograms can increase radiation exposure to breast tissue 1,000 times over a chest X-ray? Now consider a simple, non-invasive, and totally safe medical procedure approved by the FDA since 1982 that can detect breast cancer 5 to 8 years before it can be visualized on a mammogram. Infrared thermographic imaging can accurately detect the initial signs of breast cancer as increased blood supply and metabolic rate, which is recorded as heat. Why expose yourself to radiation when accurate and safe medical detection is available? Call the Thermography Center of Fairfax to schedule a breast exam today at 703-948-7248. That's 703-943-7248. For more information, visit www.thermographyscan.net. That's thermographyscan.net for the Thermography Center of Fairfax.
The Roselle Center for Healing is a proud supporter of breast cancer awareness and reminds you to conduct a monthly breast self-examination and a thermographic breast scan as part of your annual wellness checkup.